Hi, I am Jim Barry, and this is my story of how I beat cancer. I have been a black cab driver in London for the last 30 years. It is not a particularly healthy lifestyle with irregular hours and sitting for long periods of time in traffic, breathing in fumes. Sometimes I am away from home days at a time and end up grabbing some sleep in the cab. It is not easy to eat healthy meals whilst working. I prefer a hot meal, but it has not been easy to find a decent meal with cooked vegetables at a reasonable price, and I would often grab a pie or snack and mug of tea. In 2016, I started to sense things were not as they should be. This was worrying, as for many years I had very rarely had the need to consult a doctor, but my instinct was telling me all was not right. In August 2016, I experienced a bout of sickness when on holiday in Australia. I put it down to something I had eaten, but usually I have a cast-iron constitution regarding food. As the months progressed, I found I had to go to the toilet regularly and would pass cat-like poops, small and passed with a certain force. Occasionally, I found there were traces of pink. I never experienced any great pain, but rather discomfort on occasions. I finally went to the doctor in December 2016 and he got me to do a bowel cancer test. I was then sent to the hospital for a colonoscopy and it was confirmed that I had lower rectal cancer at stage 3, which was inoperable in its present state. They would need to treat me with a course of radiotherapy and chemotherapy to reduce the size of the cancer, which was very close to the bowel wall and lymph glands. The plan was to remove the cancer once it had shrunken sufficiently for it to be possible to do so. After the operation was performed, I would, however, have to live with a double colostomy bag. When I heard this, I was gripped by a feeling of intense dread. This was heightened even further when I asked the doctor how long I would have to live if I didn't have the operation. His matter-of-fact answer was like a punch to the stomach. 4 months. For a while after receiving this devastating news, I had a sense of deep despair. But then, something happened that started to turn things around. When I told a woman I work with my terrible news, she told me not to give up hope. Her partner Fatos had had advanced cancer in various parts of his body. I was later shown the image of a PET scan he had done which highlighted all the areas of cancer in red. The image looked as if it had been splattered with paintball shots. She told me he had been treating himself with THC oil. Then she showed me a second PET scan image from which it could be seen that the majority of red areas had disappeared completely. All that was left of the red was some faint pink dots. Several years on, he was still fit and healthy, with no cancer. Having seen the evidence of Fatos's recovery was a turning point for me. It dispelled my fear and made me confident that I too could beat my cancer. I decided at this point that I would not have the surgery but would try a different path. When I mentioned this to the surgeon, I am sure he thought this was a panic reaction and that, of course, I would choose to have the surgery to save my life. I did, however, go through with the chemoradiotherapy and should have visited the surgeon a few weeks afterwards. Strangely enough, I did not receive an appointment card for several months. This bought me time to try alternative methods without pressure from my family or the medical team. From the moment I was diagnosed, I read every piece of information I could on cancer and pH levels in the body, the effects of THC and CBD oil and anything else I could find. My son Adrian, who was 32 at the time, leapt into action and decided that I should adopt an organic vegan lifestyle. Red meat was definitely off my menu. Adrian had a food parcel delivered to our home every week containing daily ingredients and recipes, and my wife Pam prepared the meals every day. I can't say I enjoyed them, but I respected my son and stuck with it. Adrian was insistent that I only ate whole foods, not tinned or processed foods in packets. I also cut out sugar and carbs completely to starve the cancer. Based on what I had read about changing the body's pH levels, I started to eat lemons, skin, pips, pulp, etc., broccoli, kale, spinach, blueberries, and took cumin capsules and diluted apple cider vinegar. I also took bicarbonate of soda. I found a health shop in Putney that stocked good quality CBD oil that was really strong. My wife Pam also suggested I visit a Chinese herbalist she had used for acupuncture, and he gave me a small jar of herbs to take. He said one of his patients had taken these and cured their bowel cancer. I took the Chinese herbs for a couple of weeks. Above all, I constantly assured my family all would be well, and I was absolutely convinced that some or all of what I was doing would get rid of the cancer. At some point, I had asked a nurse at the hospital what cancer looked like, and she told me it was white. I remembered this one day when I checked the toilet's bowl after a movement and noticed a white blob. To my mind, I had passed the cancer. Even if it turns out I was wrong, it does not matter. I am convinced it was enough that I believed it, thereby strengthening my positive attitude. When the hospital did eventually get my files sorted, some 5 months later, I was called in for a scan to see if the cancer had shrunk sufficiently for them to be able to operate. Pam was waiting nervously in the car park, but once again, I completely believed that I would be okay. As the doctor did his investigation with the ultrasound scan, he seemed unable to locate the cancer as he moved the probe about on my stomach. Eventually, he found what he thought was the cancer and said that at least it didn't seem to have grown. Then he realized he was mistaken. What he was looking at was actually scar tissue. He turned to me and said these words that I shall forever cherish. "The tumor is gone." He had a look of shock on his face and said, I was in that small 1% category where this happened. He had never personally witnessed such a thing. I was overcome with joy at hearing I had been reprieved of my death sentence and rushed out to break the good news to Pam in the parking lot. I phoned everyone I could think of to share my good news. I truly believe I was healed as the result of my own interventions and that some or all of what I did had somehow shrunk the tumor. 6 years on, I regularly go for colonoscopies every 6 months and will have to do this for another 4 years. A small price to pay to save myself from having to live with a double colostomy bag and, more importantly, to be free of cancer. Obviously, I can't say exactly what it was that cured my cancer, nor guarantee that anything I did contributed towards the cure. But my belief is that somewhere in that combination of methods, my cancer disappeared. I feel certain my positive attitude also contributed to the favorable outcome. I would say, is you or a member of your family is diagnosed with cancer, don't give up. Gather information and try whatever you feel is right for you. At the end of the day, everything I did off my own bat was unconventional, but for me, it worked. Spotting cancer at an early stage saves lives. So it is important to tell your doctor as soon as possible if you notice anything that isn't normal for you. Disclaimer: this video does not provide medical advice. The information such as text, graphics, images, and other material contained on this video are for informational purposes only. The information is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking any new healthcare regimen. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have read or seen in this video. Check the law regarding cannabis products in your country before purchasing or using any such product.